Keith Sweat was at his hottest during this 33-week period in the 1990s, presented by Soulful Charts. On July 1st, 2021, the R&B world was treated to one of the most anticipated versus matchups thus far, Bobby Brown versus Keith Sweat. If you came up in the late 80s, early 90s, and was a fan of street swag R&B, particularly the New Jack Swing movement led by the production wizardry of Teddy Riley, then Bobby versus Keith was a must-see. Bobby Brown and Keith Sweat were the two biggest singers during the New Jack Swing era. Yet, most fans would probably say that Bobby was the bigger artist of the two. That's a very valid judgment to a large degree. After all, Bobby's sophomore album, Don't Be Cruel, took the entire music world by storm. Driven by the popularity of 6 smash hit singles, Don't Be Cruel pretty much dominated the R&B charts and made quite a mark on the pop charts. The release and performance of this iconic album was the greatest period in Bobby Brown's career, no doubt, and it definitely deserves to be featured in the upcoming Dominant Days episode, so stay tuned. With that said, don't sleep on Sweat, because the truth is, Keith Sweat has had a longer and more consistent solo career than Bobby Brown. Keith has more charted singles, more high-performing albums, more total sales. And speaking of albums, Keith Sweat has had some great albums in his own right. None, individually, has moved as many copies as Bobby Brown's Don't Be Cruel. But, as I stated earlier, Keith Sweat's career is one of consistency and strong fan loyalty. To date, Keith Sweat has achieved 5 platinum albums and 2 gold albums in his remarkable career as an R&B crooner. Let's quickly look at the stats from Keith's first 4 albums. Keith's debut album, Make It Last Forever, peaked at number 1 on the R&B charts, where it spent 3 weeks at the top of that chart. The debut project made it to number 15 on the pop charts. To date, the album is certified 3 times platinum. Keith's second album, I Get All My Love to You, spent 1 week at number 1 on the R&B charts. It was a top 10 album on the pop charts, peaking at number 6. The album is certified double platinum. The singer's third album, Keep It Comin', peaked at number 1 on the R&B charts, and just like Make It Last Forever, the album spent 3 weeks on the top of the Soulful Charts. It was a top 20 album on the pop charts, peaking at number 19. The album is certified platinum. Keith's fourth album, Get Up On It, was number 1 on the R&B charts for 2 weeks. It was another top 10 album for Keith on the pop charts as well, peaking at number 8. The album is certified platinum. So, just 4 albums deep into Keith Sweat's career, we can see how just successful he was in the first decade. He had 4 number 1 R&B albums. All 4 would make it into the top 20 of the pop charts, and 2 of the 4 would reach the top 10 of the pop chart. Bravo, no question. With that said, Keith Sweat would take his career to the next level with the release of his self-titled album, his 5th studio release. Keith Sweat's self-titled album was released on June 10, 1996. Hit singles drive album sales, and this was certainly the case with Keith Sweat's 5th album. Keith scored the 2 biggest hits of his career off singles featured on this album. So let's dive right into them. Twisted, the album's lead-in single, was released on May 23, 1996. It debuted in the top 10 at number 9 on the R&B charts on June 22nd, which is a very impressive chart debut. Twisted was a top 10 record on the R&B charts for 19 weeks, about 5 months, from late June to late October of 96. The song reached number 1 on August 17, 1996. It spent 3 total weeks in the top spot. 2 of those weeks were consecutive. Now, let's move over to the pop charts. Twisted debuted in the top 25 at number 24 on the pop charts on the same date as its debut on the R&B charts, June 22nd. Twisted was a top 10 record on the pop charts for 18 weeks, from mid-July to early November of 96. The song reached number 2 on the pop charts for the week of August 17th, which was the same day it reached number 1 on the R&B charts. So in terms of crossover appeal, Twisted was the breakthrough record of Keith's career. Nobody was the follow-up single after Twisted. The seductive ballad, a duet Keith sang with Athena Cage of Cut Close, who as a group provided backup vocals on Twisted and Nobody, was another huge hit for the Harlem, New York born singer. Let's look at the R&B chart data for the signature Sweat slow jam. Nobody was released on September the 5th, 1996. It debuted in the top 10 at number 6 on the R&B charts. A month later, on October the 5th, 1996, during the tail end of Twisted's reign. Nobody moved into the top 10 of the following week. Twisted was still a top 5 record at the time. Nobody was on the R&B charts top 10 for 18 weeks, from mid-October of 96 to early February of 97. The ballad reached number 1 on November the 30th, 1996. It was the number 1 record in R&B music for 3 consecutive weeks. Now let's move over to the pop charts. Nobody debuted at number 37 on October 5th, 1996, the same day as its debut in the number 6 position on the R&B chart. The song moved into the top 10 5 weeks later on November the 9th. Nobody was a top 10 record on the pop charts for the same amount of time it was in the top 10 on the R&B charts, 18 weeks. It was top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 from early November of 96 to early March of 97. Nobody peaked at number 3. It spent 2 consecutive weeks in the 3rd spot. So what's the significance of the success of these 2 singles? Well, Twisted and Nobody was the first time that Keith Sweat earned back-to-back R&B number 1 hits in his career. And what about the pop charts? Well, Twisted and Nobody were both top 10 hits on Billboard Hot 100 during the week of November the 9th, 1996. So, Billboard chart data reveals just how big both the singles, Twisted and Nobody, were on both the R&B and pop charts. What impact did these huge hit singles have on the chart performance and sales of Keith Sweat's self-titled album? The album debuted at number 1 on the R&B charts on July 13th, 1996. It was number 1 for 1 week. The album debuted and peaked at number 5 on Billboard 200. The pop album charts are also on July 13th. Keith Sweat's 5th studio release was his biggest crossover album. The success of the album was aligned with the general takeover of the pop charts by the soulful genres of hip-hop and R&B in the 1990s. Of course, by 96-97, Keith was an R&B vet. He had outlasted artists whose careers were launched in the late 80s, including some of his New Jack Swing brethren. And Keith was much more seasoned than the younger crooners looking to make their marks on the charts during that time in the mid to late 90s. As Billboard reported, Sweat had the ability to attract and grow his pop audience while maintaining and in fact increasing devotion from his core R&B fan base. Keith Sweat's self-titled album was one of the biggest selling albums in R&B in the 1990s. The album took just 8 months to be certified 3 times platinum, and to date, the release is certified 4 times platinum. The singles Twisted and Nobody both are certified platinum selling hits. The singles went platinum within a week of each other. Twisted in November of '96 and Nobody the following month in December. They're 2 of the biggest fan favorites within Keith's lengthy catalog. Keith Sweat's stellar career is in the middle of his 3rd decade, and I think it's far from over. I wouldn't bet against Keith Sweat. He's one of the most consistent crooners in the history of R&B music. Longevity is that man's middle name. Every one of Keith Sweat's releases have charted well and generated solid sales. With that said, Keith Sweat's self-titled album, his 5th studio release, was the best-selling project of his career. The album produced Keith's 2 biggest hits, Twisted and Nobody. Keith Sweat's Billboard chart takeover from June 22, 1996, when Twisted entered the top 10 of the R&B charts, to January 10, 1997, when the self-titled album was certified 3 times platinum, was the greatest 33-week period of Keith Sweat's incredible career. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the like button and leave your thoughts in the comments. Have a soulful music topic you would like to see featured on Soulful Charts? Let me know, and maybe I'll give it a go in an upcoming episode. I encourage you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell in order to be notified when new videos get released. And one more thing, share this channel with other connoisseurs of soul music. Peace.